Thank you everybody for joining us for another episode of vBrownBag Meet the Expert. Today we're at the New York, New Jersey UserCon, and I'm very proud to finally introduce Mike Martino, who is a good friend of mine, and he is basically the person that has included me in the New York City community, and I'm always thankful for that. Mike, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, I'm Mike Martino, and I'm a consultant for International Integrated Solutions out in Long Island, but I work from New York City, and that's why I'm part of the New York City VMUG, so thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure.
I know you had to wait like the entire day to interview me, but hopefully it's worth the wait.
It is worth it.
Okay.
So what's your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle? Oh, Wildcard78.
And where did that come from?
That's a good story. Actually, I wish it was a good story. It's more wildcard was just because of, you know, how football, wildcard teams, it used to be that wildcard teams made a lot of noise in the playoffs. I mean, I'm a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, I'll admit that. Back in 1996, they made a lot of noise. They actually upset two major high seeds before they unfortunately lost in the AFC Championship game to your Patriots, but I always like the concept of a wild card. You never know what you're going to get. And sometimes that's true of me. You know, you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's, well.
I actually never heard the story before, so I'm happy I just asked for it.
And then of course 78. You know, I'm just giving away all my information about what year I was born. So go figure.
There you go. All right. Well, by the way, Jesus Christ, you just drink without cheering? Here we go.
Well, I don't know. It's that kind of brown bag session.
Apparently it is.
Okay.
So tell us about your career, man.
My career?
Where did you start? How did you get into IT?
I've always done something IT related since I was like 6. I mean, not IT related.
6?
I've always computer related since I was 6. I mean, 8.
Fixing computers at 6-year-old?
My first computer was a Atari 600. And I don't know if anyone's ever used one of those. It was just like a cartridge-based one, had BASIC. And I just remember one of the things, and I'm very surprised that at a young age I had this maturity, but I would get those computer magazines that have like the programs you have to type in because I didn't have storage.
Oh, hold on. Your dad or your mom was a geek? Let's start with there.
My dad was practical. I don't think my dad was necessarily a computer geek, but he knew enough.
Are you the eldest son? Did you have
I was the oldest son, yeah, okay. That's true. I mean,
So he knew that he needed to put a computer in your hands from an early age.
I don't know if it was that reason. He just got it, and then of course you know how things happen where you get something and you think you're going to use it, but then really somebody else in the household ends up using it more than you, and that's exactly what happened.
I have cats, yes.
Well, that's true too. The Atari, I think, was for me, and then he had a Commodore 64. So guess what? I had the Commodore 64 as well. I mean, that's where I ended up graduating to. But the thing I meant to say about the maturity was that I was typing in these computer programs that were in these magazines, like Compute Gazette. Anyone remember that? You type them in because you'd have the magazines would give you like basic code for like 500 lines, and I would type them in.
Wow.
But I didn't have floppy disk at the time. That was the way to store it. It was the 5 1/4, and you had like, I can't remember, like a 1 meg of storage on it, or not even that. That was before the double density or whatever. God, I feel like I'm aging myself.
Whoa!
Double density,
high
density.
I thought when they used Gorilla.baz that was old school. No.
Oh yeah, that I remember that. That was cool. But no, I typed in these programs, but I had no way to save them. So I just remember typing it. It was like this really cool fireworks simulation, which at the time when you're that young, you're like, fireworks.
Wow.
Cool.
Yeah.
I typed it and I just knew I wasn't going to save it. And normally you would be upset, you'd be sad, you'd maybe curse, like, oh, I just spent all this time typing it in. But I was just like, oh, I'm going to watch this, I'm going to enjoy it, I'm going to take in the moment, and then I'm going to turn off my computer and move on. Like, I don't know what it was at 6 or 8. I wish I had that now. Like now I'm just like, oh man, I got to find a way to save this thing, But yeah, that's what I did. I typed in programs and I kind of learned. I knew BASIC really well, like from a young age. And then I usurped the Commodore, and my dad thought he was going to use that for work or business or whatever you do at the time. But I just did the same thing on that. Instead of like, I don't know, you had 64K of RAM, so that was a lot. Like the people that have VIC-20s that really were stuck with like half of that or much less than that, I felt like pretty powerful having 64K.
And at what point did you actually get like computer classes? Like you were in high school back in Jacksonville, I imagine?
Well, high school in Jacksonville, yeah. I mean, I didn't really do computer classes. I just did all the magazine typing in stuff. I kind of learned, I read, and then, yeah, I can't remember. I think it was from high school going into college, I finally got my first PC. And it was a 486 and 25 megahertz.
And you looked at Windows and you're like, what the hell is this thing?
You know what? This is going to be either typical or weird. You guys tell me. So there was a magazine that was talking about Windows 95 coming out, and they did like the guide to it. And you know how guides are now today, where they're very exhaustive. Like iOS 11 came out today, and somebody's already got like the exhaustive review of everything in and out of it. And they had something very similar to that back in the day.
I remember when they were this thick.
They were. It was a magazine this thick, and it had every single setting. And I remember looking at it and saying, "Oh, look, this is the thing documenting Windows. What was it, WinINI?" And it was just like going through all the settings, and for some reason I just looked at that and I'm like, you know, and most people would just probably put the disk in, install it, be done. And I was just like, I'm tweaking
reading the whole thing.
I'm tweaking this thing.
Very nice.
And I was like, pretty much, I just did what the magazine said. That was my learning. And then I didn't take formal classes. I mean, I ended up going to college. I had the PC, and I started taking. I mean, I actually majored in engineering. I thought I was going to do engineering, maybe computer engineering.
Which engineering did you end up taking?
I ended up not getting engineering at all. I ended up doing engineering math as my major to graduate. And I was originally in a 3-2 dual degree program where it was, you get a liberal arts degree and then you go transfer for 2 years to go get an engineering degree. Didn't do any of that. But I had engineering math. I took enough CIS classes. I looked down at CIS at the time. I was just like, you guys in CIS, so
you guys don't know what
information systems. What the hell is information systems? You know, I'm going to go get an engineering degree, so I'm obviously better than you. I'm all that stuff's beneath me, and yeah,
karma, right?
Yeah, I guess that's about right. You know, I should have taken. I mean, there's a lot of things where you look back like 20 years ago, and you're like, oh man, if I only did that differently, how things would have been a little bit better, maybe. Like, I mean, if I would have taken this class, I would have majored this instead. I mean, engineering was good. I mean, I just,
come on.
I was a machine. I was input output. Like, you give me stuff to do, and I just did it. I mean, it didn't matter whether it was relevant to what I wanted to do. I just was good at turning, you know, blank pages into pages that you turn in and get, like, you know, an A or a B or whatever. I mean, that was me.
So tell me, when you came out of college, how did you end up in tech? Because, I mean, you're coming out of, and I went to engineering too, and they tell you in engineering school, listen, engineers are a step above, you know, this and that. But I went to CCNA classes, and I'm like, I like this, I like IT.
I went to grad school for computer science, and that's only because when I made the decision not to do engineering, that I was once, you know, saying I was doing engineering because I was going to be better than everybody else. I said, okay, I'm going to graduate and go to computer science, because I made like that last second decision of like, oh, computer science is better than engineering. I love the theory. I love some of the stuff. So I applied to a couple colleges saying, oh, hey, I have no CS undergrad, but would you take me for CS grad? Which doesn't seem to make sense when you think about it, but 2 colleges accept me. One of them actually gave me money, so guess where I was going?
There you go.
Yeah, I went to Stony Brook University and did computer science. Yeah.
So that's how you ended up from Jacksonville over here.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I got to New York, and I'm so used to moving every 4 or 5 years that this is the longest I've been in one place, 17 years and counting. But yeah, I went to Stony Brook, and it took me longer to do the computer science because I had to backtrack and learn some of the stuff that I missed as an undergrad. And so I ended up spending 2000 to 2003. So almost like a 4-year undergrad degree, but I got my graduate degree in computer science and still didn't know what I wanted to do. And but you know, it's funny because I remember one of the things I came across when I actually was in the I bounced around. I didn't know what I wanted to do because there were different specialties in graduate school, and one of them I ended up joining the file systems group, which basically was big on Linux. That's why I like Linux, and I have a background in it just because of that experience. But they use a product that
it's amazing how relevant those things now are, right? Because if you came from the Windows side, Linux is like, oh my god, I need to learn Linux from zero. If you had that kind of thing, it's like, oh yeah, I know. I kind of know.
Well, you know what's funny? It's like I encountered this product in grad school that I didn't think much of, but it was called VMware Workstation.
Ah, so that's a great segue.
Yeah.
So at this point, exactly at this point, you haven't really worked as an IT professional, but you ran into VMware.
I ran into VMware, and it was funny because we needed it to, because we were hacking the kernel, we were building experimental file systems, which of course, it was like way over my head, but I was barely hanging on for dear life. But I know one of the things we did is we used VMware Workstation to test some of the things we did. So I'm like, okay, VMware Workstation. Didn't really think much of it. I just knew it was something I used.
What year was this? Because Workstation...
2003. And you know what's funny is if I actually paid attention to that, imagine if you got into VMware at that time.
Yeah.
Where everyone is just like, I mean, 2003 was like
because I remember VMware Server.
2003 was like the first VMworld. So imagine like knowing about it then. Like 1998 was, I think I know somebody who says that they were into VMware since it was code, and meaning it was 1998 in VMware Workstation. So that was only 4 years of VMware, and here we're using it in the lab, and I'm like, VMware, who?
Yeah.
You know, who's going to use this thing?
Double click it and you do something.
And the other thing I did too, and I think this is big for some reason in my life, is that I read a lot of computer magazines, and I wasn't just typing in the programs.
You never let those go.
Well, no, I mean, I was doing, when I was a kid, I just typed the programs because I was interested in whatever game that they made or whatever. I didn't really care about anything else. But then I just remember reading a lot of trade magazines and just reading about the industry because there was some good writing at the time. So I think I learned a little bit about business and computers. And I just like remember them talking about this product called GSX, was it? Yeah, GSX, and then this experimental thing called ESX came out. And I was just like, yeah, whatever.
You didn't see the you know, why did it apply? So what was the first job?
So that was, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. So 2003 was around that time, right? I didn't get into VMware until 2009 after that.
What? 6 years later?
I don't know what I did between then and then. I mean, it's really, I mean, I did general IT stuff. Like I actually didn't get out of school until 2005. I went back, 2003 was kind of a rough year to find a job after school. And I did some interviews, couldn't find anything, so I went back and my school started an MBA program. So I'm like, I got some connections, I got some funding.
You gotta get it.
So I did another 2 years. So I didn't get out of school until 2005.
Wow.
Yeah, which is like, now I'm looking back on, if only you could do things differently, right? But you can't look backward.
You have a master's.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I have 2 master's degrees and I have a engineering math degree, but it's just, I'm in IT, you know, and it doesn't matter what degree you have, but I've just always done something around computers. So 2009 was when I was like, oh, you know, this ESXi 385 came out. It's free. I mean, for some reason that was the way, that's what it took to finally get me into VMware, was do that. And then I was like, okay, this is interesting stuff. And then I really got into it when I got to do, and here's another one for you. I actually got funding. You know how hard it is to get a VCP course? People are going to kill me now. But I actually got funding to take the VCP 3.5 course. Like, my company was really good. Like, I actually worked for a really good visionary boss, and he actually gave me funding to go get the VCP 3.5. So I took the class, and I thought, exam. I totally didn't even take that exam.
Same thing happened with me with the CCNAs.
Oh yeah?
I was like up to CCNP3. My instructor was like, why haven't you taken the CCNA? And I was so afraid to ask my father for $200 to take this test, because I was the lab assistant, right? So if I could go back in time, I would just knock the crap out of me until I take the CCNA exam.
But I'm sure you had good reason. I mean,
I
didn't have.
It's just that we didn't see what certifications were when we were starting the career, right?
I mean, I didn't appreciate how hard it is to get a VCP, you know, with the class requirement and the cost. But I totally blew off the 3.5. But somehow I was able to get funding again the following year, and this time I took it seriously. This time I remember going out to, like, after the class was over, they went out to lunch or dinner or whatever, and it was just with the instructor and a couple other students, and I just remember them talking about it, and I was just like, for some reason it just clicked, like right there. I was like, this is where I want to be. And I was like, I don't care what it takes to get to VMworld. I'm going because I heard about this, and I funded myself. And then later, my boss said, "Oh, you know what? I can give you some funding." But I already spent the JetBlue points and the hotel points. I stayed in the cheapest possible hotel. I mean, the conference. Oh, the other thing too. Talk about the theme from today about taking risks and everything. One of the things I knew when I went to that VMworld, they had the thing where you had the hands-on labs, and it was one of those things where whoever completes the most labs at the end of the conference got a free pass for next year. So of course I'm like, I don't know anything else, but I got to do this. And
did you?
I did.
You got it.
I was one of 2 people to do it. So I got into 2011 VMworld, But it was just that year, 2010 was like the year that I finally decided, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to do VMware stuff. I want to get into infrastructure and learn all these things.
One thing that I am drawn to is that you said we had lunch with the instructor. You know, and you in this social setting, talking about VMware, you reached an epiphany, let's say it that way. How did you become a VMUG leader in one of the biggest cities in the world?
I didn't even know about VMUG then. I mean, I don't even remember coming up in 2010 VMworld or 2011. And I did the free pass thing again, by the way, in 2011, and then finally in 2012.
So you went in 2011 with the mission to get the pass again.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's all I knew. They were offering again. And then 2012, I show up for registration, saying, okay, what's the deal this year? And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And that's, I guess, 2012 might have been the first year I paid attention to VMUG, because I also met my wife at the time, and I was like, all right, I'm moving to the city, and I heard about a VMUG. I'm like, all right, I guess I should go to this meeting. And Aaron Lima was running the VMUG at the time, and he was basically doing a very good job of just keeping it going, because it's really hard at the time. New York has its challenges, I'll just say it that way, of running a VMUG and getting people to show up and participate. It's really good now. We got really good people. I mean, hiring you was a good decision. Hiring Nick, who's behind the camera here,
you're using hiring with quotes there. Right?
I know. No, actually, you guys.
Recruiting. Let's say recruiting.
Yeah, recruiting. Yeah, sorry.
VMUG leaders are totally volunteers.
Yep.
he pays beers. He pays in beer.
Yeah, sorry, I've been drinking a couple. That's actually my second beer, so I shouldn't have said that. But yes, you're right. It's all volunteer effort. But volunteering is hard when you put in all this work and you see nothing. I mean, people get discouraged pretty well, pretty easily. And Aaron, I gotta say, to his credit, he really kept this thing going. He actually had the resources to host it on his site at his employer. And I just remember going to the meeting and saying, you know what, this is pretty cool. Let me give my 2 cents and see what he says. And of course, this is a model that I think I've carried forward. I got to say, thanks to Aaron, is that he didn't immediately take me seriously. He didn't say, oh, well, sure, you want to join. And so he actually had like 5 or 6 people that he said that he wanted a committee to basically, okay, I'm going to get all your guys' input. Maybe we'll figure it out. This is how we're going to do it. So he'd schedule phone calls, he'd schedule meetings, and I was like one of the few guys that would always show up. And he's like, it was like maybe after 3 months, he's like, all right, I think you're serious about this. Okay, do you want to be a co-leader? So I've done that to everybody that I've recruited to work with me at the New York City VMUG. They might have told me, yeah, I want to be a VMUG leader, but I don't just. I raise the bar a little bit and say, okay, well, let's see if you come back.
You want the person that won't quit.
Yeah, well, you have people that, well, that's a good way of putting it. I mean, you also don't want that person who talks a great game and says, yeah, we're going to do all this stuff, and then they don't show up. Yeah. And you see that in so many different aspects of life and somewhat in IT, but, when volunteering and putting your time and wanting to see something get somewhere, you can't really tolerate that. There was a time where I was running it for myself for like about a year, and until 2 guys kept showing up and saying, hey, we want to help. I'm like, thank God, like that was going to be my breaking point, because for a while, I know New York City VMUG was almost non-existent. And I'm fortunate that Aaron kept it going, and then I took over when he left, and then I was able to recruit you and Nick
Jorvin.
And Greg and Jorvin as well. They actually came before you guys, and they actually helped me when I was about to lose my mind. But yeah, Greg and Jorvin were key, and then you guys came along. It's just like it's nice to see, because Greg and Jorvin are still around. Obviously you've moved on to higher and higher, better and better things,
Pittsburgh.
possibly. Yeah, well, Pittsburgh,
best
right?
town in the world.
Yeah.
All right.
So they don't have ramen noodles though.
Oh, shut up!
Right? Yeah, but,
shut up! I'm still in my ramen search.
Yeah, that's right. You'll find it. Maybe you'll start a ramen place. But
might need to.
But I gotta say, it's been key. It's been key having Greg and Jorvin, you, and then now Nick. And it's New York City VMUG is stronger than it's ever been, and it's so nice to see a dedicated group of people that want to actually contribute and don't say, hey, what am I getting out of this? But what can I do?
Exactly.
And that's been the best.
So let's wrap up, because I know we're closing here. So one thing I do want to do is talk to other leaders about what you have found helps create community, and what you have found with other leaders. I know we've done a lot of stuff in New York for a lot of firsts here, but what advice do you have for guys? Nick is saying I have to highlight that NYC VMUG got an award for outstanding achievement.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So go ahead and tell us a bit about those things and your experience.
Well, we got the Extra Mile Award from VMUG, in which Nick was Nick got to go to his first VMworld, which I'm super happy about, and he accepted the award on our behalf, and which was really nice. But yeah, we got it because we did something. I guess we pushed the envelope a little bit with VMUG. It wasn't just having meetings, because that's the thing is everyone's used to VMUGs being about you have a quarterly meeting, you have a user conference like today, but we did something. We were like, hey, let's just see what happens when we go into a room and have a whiteboard and just talk tech. Like we don't need any vendors to give us a 10,000 foot overview. What if we want to talk about 10,000 foot and then go deep dive? We can do that. Or what if I have a problem and I know these guys are pretty good at their job, so maybe they can share what they've done. And so that whiteboarding thing, I think that got us some recognition. I mean, that was something where other places now are like, hey, we should do it too. And I think that got us the recognition, so we won the Extra Mile Award. So thank you everybody who's made that possible. I mean,
and talk about that core group of people that made it possible, right?
And that was the thing, is we kind of realized that there's that group of people. We were focusing on what would happen instead of having to attract 500 people or 50 people to a meeting. What if we could just find 5 people that wanted to show up and really cared? Could we just focus on those 5? And that's really where the whiteboard thing came. I was like, I knew that I would show up, I knew you would show up, and Nick would show up, and hey, we had 3 people that really care. And then all of a sudden,
but we also had people like Anton, Azaria, Prabhu, who would always show up at a VMUG. It wasn't about looking at the agenda. I want to go see? It was like, we're meeting, so I want to go see my friends, right?
Yeah, that's too. I mean, it's that, and it's just knowing that you have quality people that you should say, you know what, let's focus on that for a second. We can do the thing where we're trying to attract a lot of people, but let's focus on quality. It's like that long tail book. You ever read that? I can't remember the name of the guy, or is it the Black Swan? It's always that event where you're trying to focus on the quality, like you're basically tailoring to like a particular group. And I thought, if VMUG does that every once in a while, maybe you have a chance to organically grow. Because if you're trying to grow by reaching everybody at the same time, like a mass of people, there's going to be not enough people that feel like their needs were served. But I think we found a group of people that really like this stuff and really, really like it. And when you focus on them every once in a while, I think that's what really makes all the difference.
Yeah, pretty good. All right, well, I think we already established your Twitter account is Wildcat78. Any other ways that you want people to read you, to help, to reach out to you?
Maybe you could tweet me every once in a while saying, "Where's your blog?"
I'm sorry.
No, you don't do that. But it's just I've been wanting to do it, and I think I'm going to start like most people do, where it's just my own little KV article database. I mean, I've actually had some ideas for articles. I think would be summarizing things for people like, hey, who knows how to do SSL certificates?
Yeah.
Maybe having one page that says, here's how you do it for all the products. That's my first idea. So I don't care if anyone wants to steal that idea. I mean, it's really beyond me for not doing it, but that's maybe something I'll do.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, the VMware community actually, we don't really go in and say, hey, I had that idea, nobody else can have it. No, everybody adds their own flavor to it. So
yeah, no, I didn't mean it that way. I just more of like, eventually I'll get a blog. I'm just really bad about finality of things you put out on the web, because it's like, oh, but that has a typo or that didn't sound right. Like I got to get over that, because I mean otherwise.
Hey, you saw about failing and leadership. So
hey, this video is actually a testament to that. I probably would look at it going, why did I say that?
Yeah.
But hey, I'm doing. This is the first for me. I'm taking a chance here. I'm going to be on YouTube, right?
Yes,
okay,
publicly, very publicly.
So, yep, there you go. I'm taking it. If I could do this, I guess I could do a blog. So,
yes, you can.
So thank you.
Yeah, especially with that blue cheese that you have in your mouth. No,
today.
He was asking about that before.
Yeah, no, that's. I'm sure I have like a blue cheese lipstick.
All right. Well, this was phenomenal. Mike is a great friend of mine, a person I really respect.
Yeah. So I'm glad Ariel was able to make the trip to the UserCon, because he's been a big supporter of New York, and now he's starting to do the same thing in Pittsburgh, and it's always great to see him. He's everywhere. He's everywhere in the world simultaneously, believe it or not.
Because I'm on Twitter.
Well, yeah, it feels like it. So.
All right. One final message for your wife, your mom.
Just like anybody else, hi, Mom.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Thank you so much.